Yes, 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 yes. We are back. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. We're back on stream. It is a pleasure to be in front of this amazing audience. As always, hope everybody has been healthy. Hope everybody has been good. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear, if the audio is working properly. And then, as always, how I like to start off the stream. Where is everybody tuning in from today? Let me know in the chat. Where is everybody watching from today? Where are you guys? I want to see all the countries. Germany, US. I want to see all the European countries, all of Africa. I want to see us being in Japan. I want somebody from Japan in the stream today as well. Guys, hope everybody's doing good. We're going to dive into the market, see what's going on. Obviously, the markets have been moving relatively slow, not going to lie. Not too much going on the pairs that I mainly trade, mainly being EuroUSD. You can see that we're pretty much in the exact same place where we were last week. Haven't really moved anywhere. Waiting obviously for the big moves to happen, which I'll highlight and explain a little bit more in today's session. So I see everybody from everywhere: India, Pakistan, Cyprus. I see Portugal, South Africa, Vietnam, Belgium, Australia, New Zealand, Holland as always. Holland represent, guys. For all my Nederlanders, Tunisia, Slovenia, Indonesia, wow, Poland, Albania, London, Romania. Man, there's only like 400 people watching, but then somehow we have pretty much every single country in the world kind of like here on the stream. Okay, guys, I'm going to give you a quick update here on what I'm looking at dollar pair wise. It's a difficult market for the dollar. I'm not going to lie. It's extremely difficult to make some good money on EuroUSD, to make some good money on a GBPUSD. If we look at, for example, a GU, we can clearly see the market is stuck. The market is just flat since, let's say, the 6th of November. We haven't really been moving anywhere. So when the market moves in a range like this, I just tend to say not interesting. If you've been watching the market outlooks every single day, you've probably been hearing me say it as well. GU is simply moving sideways. There's not really much that I can say. We need to break out of this range and start seeing some momentum into a certain direction before we can really start to make money on a pair like this. Let me just quickly check. There was something in the corner of the screen over there. I'm not really looking at GBPUSD to trade it. It's consolidating. So if anybody asks later, guys, in the stream, where's GBPUSD heading, then just tell them to watch back the beginning of the stream because it's simply not interesting. Now, what is interesting is EuroUSD to a certain extent, because Euro, despite it being in the exact same position that it was last week, does still have the potential to move a little bit higher. And the reason for that, I'm going to be highlighting for you guys right now here on the stream, okay? So first of all, what you need to understand is that from a very, very simple swing structure perspective, EuroUSD is still bullish, right? We saw a breaker structure up, we saw another breaker structure up, meaning that within this overall, let's say, clear uptrend that we've been seeing, and obviously it's been slowing down and EuroUSD has started to move a little bit sideways here, we can see that EuroUSD is still stuck within an uptrend, with this being the swing low, this being the swing high. The market retraced into discount pricing, so below the 0.5 fib retracement level, and it took out the very last liquidity low, which is positioned right over here. Now, after taking out that liquidity low, the market then obviously reversed back in towards the highs. And where do we expect the market always to reverse towards? We always expect the market to reverse towards a point of liquidity. Now, where do we have a liquidity point? Well, for that, I look at the 4-hour market structure. And what I see here on the 4-hour time frame, very simply said, is a breakdown. I see a breakdown. I see another break in towards the downside here. And at the moment, we have obviously a bearish 4-hour trend, with that being the swing high, this here being the swing low. So when I look at the daily time frame and where I'm then looking to potentially trade EuroUSD towards, the easiest target here on, let's say, an intraday time frame perspective, on a 4-hour time frame perspective, is then your overall point of liquidity, which is resting on top of this overall internal high. This for me here is the major liquidity point where I would love to see EuroUSD towards or head towards. Now, a lot of you ask me, but Fabio, like we're 4-hour swing bearish, so how can you then look for a short-term long? Somebody was actually kind of like saying, hey, Fabio, why did you take a long, for example, from this area of demand? This was actually a long position that helped me get a payout with my stop loss at the time here under the lows, targeting a new higher high. And the reason being is because the internal trend is facilitating the overall pullback in towards that point of liquidity. So if you look at the 4-hour time frame, it's relatively simple in the sense that 4-hour demand. Once again, here we have a 4-hour demand zone, and all I'm simply looking for is one more push up here, one more drive up here on EuroUSD back in towards the highs. Now, extremely important, guys, is do not overcomplicate it, because I see a lot of people still taking losses here on EuroUSD, trying to buy EuroUSD in towards the highs. If you are looking to buy it, then simply said, place your stop loss underneath the overall order flow, which is, for example, this low here, and then look to long it back up towards that main point of liquidity, from where then in the future we could, for example, look for a potential short opportunity. Now, do keep in mind, obviously the market is imperfect, so I'm not saying that this overall perfect little uptrend here is going to sustain and keep pushing us higher. No, what could happen is that the market is already ready to head down lower. And how could we then recognize that the market would be ready to head down lower? If it already breaks the internal low here, slash the overall order flow, slash the overall sell before the buy, which is your demand zone. So if this demand zone fails, then in that kind of situation, this, for example, would then be the impulse down. And then you would have, let's say, this is the impulsive phase. Then here on the right, we're now in the reaccumulation phase, right? So this is the reaccumulation phase, the orange phase. Let's make it orange instead of red. And where do we expect the reaccumulation phase to head towards? We expect the reaccumulation phase to head towards a point of liquidity. What is the main point of liquidity? This high over here. So what you can then do is obviously just follow the internal trend until that point of liquidity, because we expect the overall reaccumulation phase, this orange phase, to continue until we hit a main point of liquidity, right? And then additional kind of like confirmation, or let's say reassurance, to take them maybe like these intraday longs, that could be, hey, the daily time frame is still swing bullish, right? With this being the low, this being the high, and you're expecting that the higher time frame will kind of like to a certain extent prevail, right? We've taken out the final liquidity low. So if EuroUSD goes, it should go from the current location, right? There's nothing really underneath this low here that's gonna, let's say, cause EuroUSD to go again. So if EuroUSD, let's say, sells off below this low, then I expect it just to take out this low over here. But for now, still looking here at the 4-hour time frame, there are intraday long opportunities to trade EuroUSD back up towards this overall internal liquidity high. And then from there, that's the moment that we then retrace into the main point of liquidity. But then based on the, let's say, 4-hour swing structure, you could attempt to take another short position back in towards the downside if you see that confirmation on that overall internal high. Okay, so this is kind of like what I'm looking at on EuroUSD. So I still see some short-term upside around another 70 pip push in towards the upside. If you look at the 1-hour time frame, and if we zoom in here, you can clearly see that the internal market structure is also bullish. Here we had a break, and all you're simply doing is, it's relatively simple, is identifying the overall impulse, and then again identify the overall retracement phase. And then within the overall retracement that you have, you're looking to trade towards a liquidity point of the impulse. It sounds very complicated, but if you watch this back, guys, it's extremely simple. Within the impulse, identify a bump in the road / liquidity point. Liquidity gets taken, next leg up happens. Then once again, here we have the overall impulse in towards the highs. Then within the overall impulse in towards the highs, and it may seem like a very ugly impulse, but this is the impulse from the lowest low to the highest high. Where do we have liquidity? We have liquidity resting here, and we have liquidity resting here. Well, at the time, this was then enough to push the market up higher again. So now again, what is the overall impulse? The overall impulse is from this low in towards this high over here. Where do we have liquidity? We have liquidity resting here, and we have liquidity resting underneath here. Now, EuroUSD for me just did not take out this little low here, which would kind of like invalidate taking a 1-hour long personally. I would have waited for this low here to get taken, and then, for example, look for a long in towards the highs if you're looking to capitalize on kind of like that pullback trade. So overall here, 1-hour time frame, a little bit messy, a little bit choppy. We're kind of like consolidative, right? Not really moving anywhere at the moment. It's been ranging since, let's say, the beginning of the week. Why has it been ranging since the beginning of the week? Because we have a lot of US data coming out. Now, obviously, there was a government shutdown in the United States. This caused overall relatively a lot of uncertainty on the dollar and on where the dollar could potentially head next. Hence why it's been a little bit risky to trade those major dollar pairs. But at the moment, it does look good to head up higher based on what I see on the higher time frame, being the 4 hour. But do keep in mind, it would be a lot more valid if we also took out these two equal lows here. And then, for example, if it would be pushing up now, that would be, for me, the real kind of like valid long position to then take. But obviously, we've taken already out a bump in the road position over here. So that could also be enough to push it up higher. But yeah, that's why I would also definitely then place a little bit of a wider stop to then trade back up towards that overall high over there. So again, you might be wondering, Fab, are you then taking this position? No, personally not. Reason being is because, again, I'm just only trading really pro-trend setups at the moment. And then with Protrend, I really mean focusing on purely trading 4-hour Protrend setups. And if I look here at EuroUSD, what are the 4-hour Protrend setups? Well, obviously the setups that we've been taking in recent weeks, where we have a clear impulse. Here we have a clear impulse. And once again, here we have a clean impulse. So all I'm simply waiting for is for the internal liquidity high to get taken out. And then I would be looking for that overall short position in towards the downside. That's the position that I'm mainly waiting for once we get the order flow confirmation shift, right? So I'm looking for, let's say, this to happen. Then here we have the internal break once again, as we've been having in the past. And then for me, the real shorts will, for example, happen this, retrace, boom, retracing towards there, and then I'll sell the living hell out of EuroUSD. This is the ultimate setup that I'm waiting for. Now, again, you may deem this relatively conservative, but for me, this is perfectly fine. And it's why, for example, I've been able to milk NZDUSD a lot, because these kind of setups are just the highest probability setups. On these setups, you can have literally kind of like a 60 to 65% win rate if you execute it in the right way. You'll have a very low trade frequency, and that's why also your potential return will be maybe a little bit less in a month. But these are just simply said the highest probability trades. And a good example of these kind of trades is again here on NZDUSD, which we've been seeing throughout, let's say, the year so far, where every single time all we are simply doing is waiting for impulse reaccumulation. And this is kind of like an example that I'm waiting for on EuroUSD. So EuroUSD is currently trading within, let's say, the phase of, what's a good example here on EuroUSD? Yeah, so EuroUSD is, let's say, trading in this phase here, where you have kind of like a very significant bump in the road over here, and then another push down. And I'm personally just waiting for this high here on EuroUSD to get taken, and then for me, the real sell-off in towards the downside could potentially occur. So when I'm looking here at an NZDUSD, all I'm simply doing is looking at the overall impulse, and within that impulse, I identify, hey, here we have a liquidity high. Liquidity high gets taken, drop off. Then here, again, we have an impulsive phase in towards the downside. Within the impulsive phase, I have liquidity high here. And the high itself was liquidity because you have descending highs. High here gets taken, sell off. Then again, here we have the overall impulse in towards the downside. Where do we have liquidity? We have liquidity resting here, and we had liquidity resting here. Liquidity high gets taken. Then what do I wait for? The change in market structure. And then from there, that's when you get into the sell. Now, again, over here, the setup that we all took last month, obviously as well. Here we have the impulse in towards the downside. Here we had a liquidity high. Here we had a liquidity high. Here we had one. Here we had one. I was favoring kind of like this one over here because it aligned beautifully with the 3 monthly open level, and then together with the, at the time, hawkish FOMC statements, which is bullish for dollar. That was with this market structure shift as confirmation, then the confirmation to take the sell, which I know a lot of you were able to capitalize on. So those are the kind of setups that favor me and favor my overall strategy. Do I want to then be in kind of like these little longs here, sweating my balls and being stressing about, hey, here again a low gets taken and a lot of manipulation? No. So what do I wait for? I just wait for more clarity, because at the moment NZDUSD is just consolidating. So I'll just wait for it either to manipulate more, maybe head down again, and then in the future I'll get into maybe potentially a better setup. Or if it starts retracing up higher again, wait for the final liquidity to get taken out. And then that, for example, is an extremely high probability setup, because then you can place the stop loss well above the high. Maybe we'll even touch the 3 monthly open level, you don't know. Give it some room to breathe, and then we can target the yearly open again. And then all you're simply doing is just following what the overall trend is doing. So this for me, again, is the main focus on these pairs, and that's why I'm just being nice and patient. No need to kind of like really force setups. Obviously, here and there, you can take a little short-term long, and get those good quality setups in if everything aligns. But yeah, that's what I'm waiting for there. Now, obviously, a lot of questions on USDCAD. So USDCAD has dropped quite a lot since this morning. The Canadian dollar seems to be extremely strong throughout the, let's say, last 2 days. There were still a lot of equal lows open over here, perfectly fine. If you look at USDCAD here from a 4-hour time frame perspective, I mean, this here, you could view this as an impulse. Maybe look at the 1-hour time frame as well. Obviously here, you're building up quite a lot of liquidity. Now, let's see how the market reacts to this monthly open. You do want to see the market kind of like slow down here. That is an important level. Personally, if we break down below this low here, then obviously it's likely that we're also going to take this blue dotted line. So then we would have to wait for some reaccumulation again to happen. So it's extremely favorable that USDCAD does, let's say, continue to push up higher from these levels. Ultimately, here you have pretty much the break. Here you have kind of like the swing high. For me, you could view this as like push up, pull back, push up. I'll just view this more as one push up, and I'll view this as internal liquidity together with the monthly open. So I want the market here to manipulate a bit and then head up higher again. Other than that, if we do just crash down, then there's still potential to take out these lows over here, just also because the dollar index is obviously not really cooperating at the moment with an upside bias. If you look here at the 4-hour time frame, obviously the overall order flow still remains bearish, right? We can very clearly see that we've had a buy up, sell down, buy up, sell down, buy up, sell down. So the overall supply zone here is still in control. I've been saying throughout the entire week and also last week, we need to break above this monthly open and then retest, and then we'll only go. Other than that, there's still downside potential for USDCAD, which can still, again, push up what EuroUSD, for example, in towards that overall liquidity high. Hence why I'm not shorting EuroUSD yet, because I still see that there is potential for the downside for the dollar index, right? So these kind of situations, it's extremely important to be very, very careful with what kind of setup that you're taking. Don't need to rush. I understand we all want to kind of like pass our platform challenges and be in setups, but it's really all about getting those higher quality setups in and focusing on those, as opposed to kind of like squeezing in a setup just for the sake of it. Fabio, when picking a trading plan on the trading pit as a swing trader, I'm picking futures or CFDs. You're picking CFDs. Now, moving on into a GA, because again, guys, then the dollar index still has potential downside, meaning EuroUSD still has some further upside potential. GBPAUD still has potential to head down lower. A very nice retest of the 3-monthly open and of the yearly open. I'm still looking for some further downside on this. It's not the cleanest of pairs at the moment. But I'm still favoring some more downside, as in the immediate term it does seem more bearish than bullish. We can see here on the daily time frame that it's been trending down lower. We've clearly been creating a low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, what could be to now head down lower again. So I'm not definitely looking for longs, or I'm definitely not looking for longs on GBPAUD at the moment, also just because the pound is relatively weak and the Australian dollar is relatively strong. So yeah, favoring shorts on this, in towards the downside. Let's see. So gold is pumping. I've seen quite a few comments now about gold. Yes, gold is pumping indeed. Yeah, so look at where gold is pumping from. Obviously, at the beginning of the week, if you watch the market outlooks again, I've been talking about this here being a demand zone from where we could head up higher. For myself, gold is still relatively bullish. We took out some daily liquidity here, after which we have now seen an internal trend start to form. So I'm looking for this internal trend to continue up higher from the monthly open, as the monthly open is a logical level for the market to continue heading up higher. At the beginning of the week, I also mentioned that it was not smart to maybe look for longs here. Why? Because you want to see the bullish confirmation. So what happened? The early buyers here get stopped out. Then again, here buyers get stopped out. And now we've seen a 4-hour change of character together on the monthly open. So yeah, I would love to see some further upside. Definitely see gold heading at least towards 4111 very, very soon. So I'm more bullish on gold, and I would be looking for some further upsides on this. Fabio, apart from the trading pit, what platform do you use? Alpha Capital, FDMO. You can use funding pips. So that's gold for you. Let's have a look. So then next, guys, obviously we have the let me quickly check. So Aussie yen. So Aussie yen, I'm bullish on this, guys. I'm bullish on this, looking for more upside. This is one of my top picks for the week. I still see this heading up higher. Broke up again above the monthly open, liquidated the early buyers twice. So the first time and the second time. So this looks good for further upside. Yeah, I think you know that as well, guys. I don't need to reassure you about that. You can see that as well. EuroGBP looking good for some further upside as well. So EuroGBP in itself is obviously extremely bullish. So not looking for any sells on this. I'm just looking to capitalize on the overall upside momentum. We had a very nice trend line here. Our trend line liquidity took out the final low. And what I'm now looking for is pretty much for this just to continue heading up higher. Still relatively, I am bearish on the pound and bullish or more bullish on euro. So I would like for this to head up higher in the near future. So more bullish on EuroGBP than bearish. Though, yeah, obviously we're nearing a phase where you have to be a little bit more careful, meaning that the impulses and the pullbacks are not as clear as they used to be. So what I mean by that is when you look at EuroGBP here on the 4-hour time frame, right? Here you have a very clear impulse in towards the highs, and then you have a massive pullback, after which, again, a very clear impulsive phase in towards the highs starts. So when you look at this chart here, it's very clear that you're kind of like trading towards this overall high here. So when I look at this here, for me, it's a clear impulsive phase. But now what's happened is that you've kind of like broke above the daily break of structure line, in the sense that the break of structure line is this high here. So at some point in time, EuroGBP will sell off. There's a lot of liquidity here. You're also building up some more liquidity here. So yeah, it's getting riskier and riskier, obviously, to stay in longs, because preferably when you trade a daily time frame, you want to be trading the impulsive phase before the break of structure line. Now, an example here is, let's say here on EuroGBP at the time, you took out this internal low, you head up higher. Then what happened here is that you retraced into this demand zone, and this is the free monthly open. And from there, what happens? You head up higher. And then again, it's very clear that you're in a bullish impulsive phase over here until kind of like where? Until the break of structure line, because at some point in time after the break of structure, you expect the pullback to happen. Now on EuroGBP, we've had such a long-term impulsive phase because the pound has been so weak that we're getting into a very risky area where you're currently trading after the break of structure line. So at some point in time, you could expect the market to pull back. And my favorite personal setups that I love taking is when you trade the impulsive phase. My camera is not working, I see. Let me try and get it to work again. Let me see. Let me get back to my other camera. Let's see if it works. Yeah, got it again. Okay, so it should work again. I think everybody can still hear me. So my favorite kind of setups that I love taking are when you trade the impulsive phase within the impulsive phase, guys. So I prefer to look at a setup where I'm trading underneath the break of structure line, because I want to trade until the break of structure line, if that makes sense. So my preferred setup will always come in, let's say, this phase here. Let me just make this phase a different color maybe. Guys, I see somebody spamming the chat. You, my friend Bavin Pansurira, you are gonna be banned from the chat. You're gonna be put in a timeout like a little boy. Really no need to spam the chat, guys, man. Fucking hell. Everybody's annoyed with it. Come on, man. Can you not read the room? So obviously, I want to always just trade the overall impulsive phase within the overall impulsive phase. Now, what do I mean with impulsive phase within the overall impulsive phase, guys? Well, when we have a clear swing structure from this low to this high, we had a very clear pullback. The pullback happens to where? To a demand zone together with a free monthly open. So it's very likely that the market will head up higher from that point. Now, when you have the confirmation that the market will then head up higher, which is, let's say, a change of character, which happened, for example, here at the bottom, exactly on the free monthly open, that's the moment that you expect the potential next impulsive phase to start, right? So what you then do is then you go to the 4-hour time frame, and then you start identifying, hey, what I have here on the daily impulsive phase is also 4-hour impulses. So I look at the 4-hour time frame and I say, for example, hey, this here is an impulse up. And within that impulse, I identify my liquidity lows. I have here liquidity and here liquidity. And what happens? The first liquidity low gets taken, and then we head up higher again. Then again, here we have an overall impulsive phase in towards the high over here. Where do I have liquidity? I have liquidity here. I have liquidity, for example, here. Add it here. Okay, let's say this liquidity gets taken here, change of character happens. Those are then, for example, the moments where you then want to go long back in towards a new higher high, because you're trading the impulse within the impulse, right? It's like the impulse within the impulse of the impulse, if that kind of like makes sense in a way. Because what happens again, here you have another impulsive phase in towards the highs. And then here again, you have another impulsive phase in towards the highs. So for example, here on this impulsive phase, where was liquidity? Liquidity was resting, let's say here and here, maybe here. It didn't retrace that deep. It already headed up higher. Okay, fine. You didn't take a setup on that. Then again here, swing structure. Then you have the reaccumulation happening, which is, let's say, this orange zone. Let's make it like that, right? So it's this orange zone. So when do you expect the orange zone then to be over? Once you grab liquidity. Where's liquidity? In the impulsive phase, here and here. Okay, so you have two liquidity lows, this one and this one. Okay, the first one gets taken. It aligns beautifully with the 0.5 fib retracement level. And then once that gets taken out, then you see, hey, the reversal in towards the upside starts, where you then, for example, see, hey, here, 4-hour change of character. Then here, internal liquidity gets taken. And then these are the kind of setups that you can then take with the stop loss underneath the low, targeting what is then a new higher high. And obviously, you can also place the stop loss here. And then what are you doing? You're trading the impulsive phase, right? The expansion phase, the impulsive phase under the breaker structure line. And you're trading the impulse within the impulse, because you're trading the 4-hour impulse within the daily impulse, within whatever the weekly impulse, right? And this is kind of like the goal of the game. You look for a trending pair where you just do this on a continuous basis. So if you look at where EuroGBP is now at the moment, it's obviously kind of like in a region that's relatively difficult to trade. Yes, we're super bullish, so you're only looking for longs, but just keep in mind at some point in time, you're going to get nuked, right? So don't use too wide stops in these kind of situations. But yeah, we took out the internal liquidity, swing low, swing high. Liquidity got taken. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense to head up higher. But just keep in mind that if you use a wider stop loss, then you should watch out. So the same kind of like goes for gold, right? Gold had, let's say here, a breakdown, and now it's had a break up. So for gold, you've had an impulsive phase in towards the highs, okay? So where do you have liquidity? Liquidity was resting underneath here. So it made a lot of sense that at least the market came in towards this point. Now, where's the market come in towards? It's come into discount pricing, into the monthly open. And it's provided you with a change of character. And it's taken liquidity. So you have pretty much everything to then say, hey, gold should now be ready to head up higher. Now, obviously, gold is a different beast, and everybody loves taking big lot sizes. But in these kind of situations, the 4-hour fractal structure shift here with a stop loss, for example, underneath the lows, targeting a new all-time high, that is, for example, a valid setup to take then. And then at a later stage, when you have more confirmation and you have, let's say, a more clear trend, and you, for example, see here the break of this, and it breaks it cleanly, and then you see this, and then this is internal liquidity. Then, for example, wait for that internal liquidity to get taken, and then you get in on there. Because ultimately, again, what you're doing now is you're expecting that the new impulsive phase will start. So what you want to do, you want to look for the impulsive phase within the impulsive phase. So what I'm now doing, for example, here on gold, is I'm just looking at, hey, this is the impulse. Let me just remove everything for you guys to make it nice and clean. And I'm just looking to capitalize on the next impulse in towards the highs. Until where? Until the break of structure line over here. So this is a nice location, for example, to get in, right? So this is just continuously what you're doing and what you're doing and what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, gold you can take along. Just use a little bit of a wider stop loss, because you are pretty much trying to call the bottom here, right? And for me, the easiest setups to take is when the bottom has already been made, and then I get in on the overall impulsive phase. Those are the kind of like the most simple trades that you can kind of like take that are out there. So let's have a look, guys, at some other setups that you are keeping an eye on. What are the main setups for everybody who is watching the currently the stream, guys? Appreciate everybody here being, by the way. Make sure to leave a like on the stream, as always. That is, yeah, very simply said, highly appreciated. Yeah, here to help everyone, as always. I see somebody's asking about EuroCAD, out NZD. Yeah, USDCHF. Let me just quickly check what the dollar is doing. No, not much. So 80 NZD. Yeah, 80 NZD for me is a difficult one. Yeah, I mean, it took out this little bump in the road here, and obviously it's very, very bullish. So yeah, I mean, it's taken that out, maybe a little bit lower, free monthly open. Those are nice levels to look for. Waiting for EU, yeah. EuroUSD is really good to look at or to keep an eye on. Obviously, the highest probability setup will come if you take out this low here, and then if you take out this low here, and then, for example, get that bullish confirmation, right? Those are the highest kind of like probability setups. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Yeah, Aussie yen I like. GPNZD shorts. Yeah, I think Mitch was looking at GN as well. GPNZD. Let's have a look. Yeah, GN has indeed potential. The only thing I had with GN myself is, if you look at this, in a way, this for me is the impulse. It's taken out all of the trendline liquidity that was resting here, and then it pushed up higher again. So in a way, you could also kind of like make a case that this is now within its impulsive phase. But I mean, ultimately, it should head down lower one more time to pretty much take out these lows here. I would love for those lows to get taken out. That would be a very high probability long to take, kind of like from that monthly open there, once you see some confirmation on it. So yeah, maybe one more short down for like another 240 pips, and then from there we can kind of like look for longs again. Euro yen is so overextended. It's kind of like a no man's land at the moment. Very hard to scale in on this with current location. Trading off the breaker structure, so it would need to retrace. For me, Aussie yen is kind of like the only pair that kind of like comes close to a potentially valid entry. Euro yen is after the breaker structure line. It's in no man's land at the moment. So I mean, ultimately, what you want to see from a euro yen is either another strong impulse up, and then this becomes a little bump in the road where we can then look for the future for longs together with this and this, or yeah, you have to kind of like I don't really see it. Maybe on the lower time frame, there's something for you there. Yeah, CAD Swiss is good in a way. I'm looking at CAD Swiss as well. CAD Swiss is one of those pairs that has a very clear trend as well. I don't think I need to really explain this one too much. Ultimately, let's just focus on the 4 hour. You have an impulsive phase in towards the downside here. Within that impulsive phase, we had very clear liquidity high over here. Once that liquidity high got grabbed, we got the overall shift in the market structure. So that became the high, that became the low, that became the lower high, and this is now the lower low. So ultimately, this is now your overall swing here. And what we're now looking to do is trade the impulse within the impulse. So the market structure is between this low and this high here. We've already retraced into premium, and I'm now looking indeed to trade the next impulsive phase in towards the downside. So we had impulse down, small one, pullback, impulse down, very big one, and now we're looking at the pullback. So the pullback has now happened into the 0.5 fib. What I'm ultimately looking at here is for us to retrace to this or this. Personally, I think I'll just take a short here from the free monthly open, stop loss above the overall 4 hour high / daily high, and then just target a new lower low again. This is kind of like a setup that I would be waiting for on a CAD Swiss. I like this setup a lot. Let me know what you guys think of this one. ADCHF shorts, yeah, could be as well. I must say that a Swiss is a little bit less unclear because the trend is a little bit less clear. It's a lot more consolidative. I would say N Swiss and CAD Swiss are much better picks. N Swiss in itself is now making its retracement again. I'm looking at an N Swiss for a retracement up again. We've had a break of structure in towards the downside here. Fabio, can you focus on 1 hour entry and analysis, because I feel the 4 hour is very rare and kind of missing the setups, but is there an additional confirmation can I expect on the 1 hour? I personally don't agree with the fact that there are very rare setups, because at the end of the day, the markets go up and down. I'm showing a lot of examples here of potential 4 hour setups. So let's say here on the 4 hour time frame on Swiss, what's the next liquidity point? This wick you can disregard, it's an 11 o'clock wick, but I'm kind of like looking for this high to get taken, and then on the change of character, you can pretty much just get in. So I'm looking for N Swiss to retrace, and then for the new impulsive phase to start. So we had an impulsive phase here after previously having an impulsive phase here, and now we're in the reaccumulation waiting for the next impulsive phase to start. So where do we expect the next impulsive phase to start from? From either this liquidity high or this liquidity high. So ultimately, I'm just looking for more shorts on N Swiss from either one of these highs over here. So let's keep an eye on those highs. I think that would be a great setup potentially. Yeah, this one aligns with the 0.5 fib as well. And then all we're looking for then is for the 4-hour, for the 4-hour shift in market structure. And again, if you feel like you're missing out on setups, then just set a sell limit without even waiting for the 4-hour fractal. If it's high enough in the leg, a setup like this is perfectly fine to take, because at the end of the day, yeah, if it's trading that high, it should head down lower. It's kind of like a one-on-one setup of this previously set up over here, where you also just put a sell limit on top of the free monthly open, stop loss above the highs, and then just short it in towards the downside. It can be that simple. So yeah, that's for NZDCHF. NZDCAD, I'm waiting for a little bit higher as well. Either one of the highs, this high or this high. I would prefer for this high here to get taken out. You can clearly see it's very bearish. Lower lows, lower highs. I'm just waiting for internal liquidity points to get taken out. Back in the days, I would be focusing on this supply zone here. But as you know, let's just make a connection with the overall buy for the sell, which is this over here. And then from there, we can start looking for sells once we have taken out an internal liquidity high, and obviously the high that we have over here aligns beautifully with the yearly open, so that would be my preferred potential selling point. Then what we have as well, USDJPY. Yeah, where is it? It's very high in the leg. Yeah, not ideal at the moment in my opinion. USDJPY. Gold bullish, talked about that. CAD yen flying like crazy. Yeah, CAD is extremely strong. Also talked about this one many times last week. Yeah, crystal clear, I guess, again as well. All you're simply doing is looking at internal liquidations of the impulse and then to get in. Yeah, just like that. So I think those are some of the setups that we have on watch. Let's have a look. Is there anything else to watch? Not really. Yeah, relatively slow days, waiting. waiting. EuroUSD's waiting. I to be honest, I don't really expect too much from EuroUSD until like Thursday, where we have NFP numbers being released. Also tomorrow we have FOMC meeting minutes. So yeah, we just need to wait for that. GJ still relatively bullish. I mean, again, this thing has been trending up since April. Doesn't make sense to look for any shorts on this, in my opinion. We had a demand zone here. Demand zone has a very strong low as it liquidated previous equal lows over here. Markets then retraced pretty much exactly into the free monthly open. From there, it headed up higher. We retraced into discount pricing, and ultimately, after seeing an impulsive phase in towards the highs without a lot of liquidity. So obviously in the push up, there was not a lot of liquidity, except for, let's say, this internal low over here. We had to grab more. Now, what's happened here on GJ is that we have seen a, let's say, internal breaker structure. Let's just say here we have a breakdown, right? So push up, meaning we're currently within the impulsive phase of the impulsive phase, right? So here we have impulsive phase until the breaker structure line. So obviously I'm only looking for longs on GJ. Now what I'm looking for on GJ is for it to take out liquidity. So where do we have liquidity positioned? Well, for example, here we have equal lows, or even lower, here we have, let's say, a liquidity low. Now, these liquidity lows may seem a little bit far away, so you could also use this here as an internal liquidity low. So I'm looking at these three lows to potentially give us some more upside on GJ, and only if those lows are taken, that's when I would be looking for another long position. So yeah, focus on those lows for new potential longs, and then wait for bullish confirmation on top of the low itself. That is personally what I'll be doing. Check gold. At least say please, guys, when you ask me to check something. Really appreciate it. If you look, USDCHF Sanush said please. That's fantastic. Thank you, Sanush. Really appreciate it. Yeah, USDCHF is a little bit in a difficult spot at the moment. I mean, in a sense that it's bearish, right? We cannot deny that USDCHF is bearish. We had an impulsive phase down, then we had another impulsive phase down, and ultimately now again you should be in the potential next impulsive phase down. We've seen a daily change of character in towards the downside here. So the low got broken, meaning this is now the high, this is now the low. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we have come to a little internal high here. There's also liquidity here and here. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it has the potential to head down lower from one of these regions, but you would need to wait for the internal structure to shift as well. At the moment, the 1 hour is internally bullish. So wait for this low to go, and then maybe you could get into some shorts again. Yeah. What's your take on GBPNZD? We already discussed. Please check EuroUSD. Talked about that as well quite a few times now. Forex Factory still down. Yeah. So I mean, those were kind of like the main updates. As you can see, I'm waiting for reaccumulation to happen on a lot of pairs. CAD Swiss higher, and then I'll be getting into shorts. NZD Swiss higher, I'll be getting into shorts. NZDUSD higher, and I'll be getting into shorts. EuroUSD higher, and I'll be getting into shorts from the blue dotted line, maybe a long if we take out this little low over here of 1.15791 and then get bullish confirmation. USDCAD I've talked about as well here on the monthly open. It needs to slow down and now see some manipulation in the form of a 1 hour change of character. It can head up higher right from the monthly open and these equal lows here. So we're now just waiting. USDJPY is not in a good spot at the moment. US oil is it's in demand, has the potential to head up higher, though it's more bearish than bullish. But for the short term, definitely a little bit more upside. It's not a good location to short now. You have a supply zone here, but there's no liquidity in the push down. You have descending highs here, so should head up higher and then sell off, or maybe from some higher levels. So I'm short-term upside still there for potential. US 30 is currently on the free monthly open. This is a falling knife. I wouldn't try and catch the falling knife, but keep an eye on it. It does has the potential to turn around from these levels. I'm looking at it from the perspective of viewing this more as kind of like my swing up, seeing it now in discount pricing, and it's now taken out some equals here. So I think there is potential for it to retrace, but yeah, who am I to call the bottom of something that's been dumping around 5%, right? Yeah, I mean, the whole stock market is kind of like shitty at the moment. Looking at NAS, like NAS is one of those pairs, if you look at it, then just say, hey, we're in discount, we're on top of the free monthly open. If you want to have kind of like peace of mind, just kind of like take a setup like this, give it some room to breathe again. Say, hey, here we have equal lows. There's potential to take this out. Maybe either look for this as market execution, or then from current levels, if you want to take a long, wait for the 4 hour change of characters to happen, and then, for example, look for a long. These are the kind of setups how I would take them personally. Because once it gets the lowest low, the lowest liquidity low of the swing structure, then it should go up, right? But if it still has a liquidity low open, then instead of like a buy limit, just set like a market order when the fractal structure confirmation actually happens. Why crypto dumps so hard? Because there's no liquidity in the market, and yeah, everybody's just getting screwed over, I guess. But yeah, not looking good for crypto. But I guess when it doesn't look good, that's the moment that it looks good, in the sense that that's the moment that you kind of like want to get in, right? Oscar buys EU targets 1.17287. Yeah, I mean, his thought process is in a way that he's looking to target the free monthly open level. Perfectly fine. His idea is that he's currently trading the internal bullish leg, right? So here demand, and here demand. So he's taking that buy position that I just explained at the beginning of the stream, but he's then just continuously holding it until here. But obviously, if he sees that the market reacts to this with a bearish market structure shift, he'll potentially get out as well. I'm very happy to hear, Divavev, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's not been the best trading week for real. I mean, it's been slow being Troy. It's been slow, right? So no need to really kind of like over risk or force any positions, right? 80% of the money is made in 20% of the time. I think that's the way to say it. So yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining in. There won't be a live stream on Thursday as I'll be traveling, but I'm going to be doing a London Discord live tomorrow morning. So I'll see you all there. If you're not inside Discord yet, make sure to check the pinned comment here in the chat, and I'll see you inside Discord. And obviously, if you have any other questions, yeah, make sure to let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you all, and we will speak very soon. Ciao, ciao.